constantly thought of Krishna became free from envy. Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda were fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness because of affection. When the mind is somehow or other fully absorbed in Krishna, the material part is very soon vanquished, and the spiritual part, attraction to Krishna, becomes manifest. This indirectly confirms that if one thinks of Krishna enviously, simply because of thinking of Krishna, he becomes free from all sinful reactions and thus becomes a pure devotee. Examples of this are given in the following verse.
Text 31. Gopyak kamad bayat kangso dvishach jayadayo nipaha sambandhad vishnayak snedan yuyam bhaktya vayam vibo yuyam bhaktya vayam vibo yuyam bhaktya vayam vibo. My dear King Yudhishthir, the gopis, by their lusty desires, by fear, Shishupal and other kings by envy, the Yadus by their familial relationship with Krishna, you Pandavas by your great affection for Krishna, and we, the general devotees, by our devotional service, have obtained the mercy of Krishna. Purport. Different persons achieve different kinds of mukti, sayuja, salokya, sarupya, samipya, and sarshti, according to their own intense desire, which is called bhava. Thus it is described here that the gopis, by their lusty desires, which were based upon their intense love for Krishna, became the most beloved devotees of the Lord. Although the devotees at Vrindavan expressed their lusty desires in relationship with the paramour, parakya rasa, they actually had no lusty desires. This is significant of spiritual advancement. Their desires appeared lusty, but actually they were not the lusty desires of the material world. Chaitanya Charitamrita compares the desires of the spiritual and material world to gold and iron. Both gold and iron are metal, but there is a vast difference in their value. The lusty desires of the gopis for Krishna are compared to gold, and material lusty desires are compared to iron. Kamsa and other enemies of Krishna merged into the existence of Brahman, but why should Krishna's friends and devotees have the same position? Krishna's devotees attain the association of the Lord as his constant companions, either in Vrindavan or in the Vaikuntha planets. Similarly, although Narada Muni wanders in the three worlds, he has exalted devotion for Narayana, Aishvaryaman. The Vrishnis and Yadus and the father and mother of Krishna in Vrindavan all have familiar relationships with Krishna. Krishna's foster father and mother in Vrindavan, however, are more exalted than Vasudeva and Devaki. 32. Somehow or other, one must consider the form of Krishna very seriously. Then, by one of the 5 different processes mentioned above, one can return home, back to Godhead. Atheists, like King Vena, however, being unable to think of Krishna's form in any of these 5 ways, cannot attain salvation. Therefore one must somehow think of Krishna, whether in a friendly way or inimically. Purport. Impersonalists and atheists also try to circumvent, always try to circumvent the form of Krishna. Great politicians and philosophers of the modern age even try to banish Krishna from Bhagavad Gita. Consequently, for them there is no salvation. But Krishna's enemies think, here is Krishna, my enemy, I have to kill him. They think of Krishna in his actual form, and thus they attain salvation. Devotees, therefore, who constantly think of Krishna's form are certainly liberated. The only business of the Mayavadi atheists is to make Krishna formless. And consequently, because of this severe offense at the lotus feet of Krishna, they cannot expect salvation. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says in this connection, Tina Shishupaladi Bina Pratikula Bhavam Didishur Yena Eva Narakam Yatiti Bhavaha. Except for Shishupal, those who go against the regulated principles cannot attain salvation and are surely destined for hellish life. The regulated principle is that one must always think of Krishna, whether as a friend or enemy. Text 33. Narada Muni continued, O best of the Pandavas, your two cousins, Shishupal and Dantavakra, the sons of your maternal aunt, were formerly associates of Lord Vishnu, but because they were cursed by Brahmanas, they fell from Vaikuntha to this material world. Purport. Shishupal and Dantavakra were not ordinary demons, but were formerly personal associates of Lord Vishnu. They apparently fell to this material world, but actually they came to assist the Supreme Personality of Godhead by nourishing his pastimes within this world. Text 34. Maharaj Yudhishthira inquired, what kind of great curse could affect even liberated Vishnu Bhaktas, and what sort of person could curse even the Lord's associates? For unflinching devotees of the Lord to fall again to this material world is impossible. I cannot believe this. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 8:16, the Lord clearly states, Mamope tukonteya punarjanma navidyate. One who is purified of material contamination and returns home back to Godhead does not return to this material world. Elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo vedi tatvadaha chaktadeham punar janma naitimam eti sorjana. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Maharaj Yudhishthira therefore was surprised that a pure devotee could return to this material world. This is certainly a very important question. Text 35. The bodies of the inhabitants of Vaikuntha are completely spiritual, having nothing to do with the material body, senses, or life air. Therefore kindly explain how associates of the personality of Godhead were cursed to descend in material bodies like ordinary persons. Purport. This very significant question would be difficult for an ordinary person to answer, but Narada Muni, being an authority, could answer it. Therefore Maharaj Yudhishthira inquired from him, saying, Etad akyatum arasi. Only you can explain the reason. From authoritative sources it can be discerned that associates of Lord Vishnu who descend from Vaikuntha Loka do not actually fall. They come with the purpose of fulfilling the desire of the Lord, and their descent to this material world is comparable to that of a Lord. The Lord comes to this material world through the agency of his internal potency, and similarly, when a devotee or associate of the Lord descends to this material world, he does so through the action of the spiritual energy. Any pastime directed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead is an arrangement by Yogamaya, not Mahamaya. Therefore it is to be understood that when Jai and Vijay descended to this material world, they came because there was something to be done for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, it is a fact that no one falls from Vaikuntha. Of course, a living entity who desires Sayuja Mukti remains in Krishna's Brahman effulgence, which is dependent on Krishna's body. Brahmanohi pratishtaham. Such an impersonalist who takes shelter of the Brahman effulgence must surely fall down. This is stated in the Shastra. Yeyen daksha vimuktimaninas tvayasta bhavat avishuddha buddhayaha arura krichtrena padam tadag Patantyado nadrita yushpadangrayaha. Patantyado nadrita yushpadangrayaha. O Lord, the intelligence of those who think themselves liberated but who have no devotion is impure. Even though they rise to the highest point of liberation by dint of severe penances and austerities, they are sure to fall down again into material existence. For they do not take shelter at your lotus feet. The impersonalists cannot reach the Vaikuntha planets to become associates of the Lord, and therefore, according to their desires, Krishna gives them Sayuja Mukti. However, since Sayuja Mukti is partial Mukti, they must fall again to this material world. When it is said that the individual soul falls from Brahmaloka, this applies to the impersonalist. From authoritative sources, it is learned that Jai and Vijay were sent to this material world to fulfill the Lord's desire to fight. The Lord also sometimes wants to fight. But who can fight with the Lord but a very confidential devotee of the Lord? Jai and Vijay descended to this world to fulfill the Lord's desire. Therefore, in each of their three births, first as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, second as Ravana and Kumbhakarna, and third as Shishupal and Dantavakra, the Lord personally killed them. In other words, these associates of the Lord, Jai and Vijay, descended to the material world to serve the Lord by fulfilling his desire to fight. Otherwise, as Maharaj Yudhishthira says, Ashadayeya iva bhati. The statement that the servant of the Lord could fall from Vaikuntha seems unbelievable. How Jai and Vijay came to this material world is explained by Narada Muni as follows. I'm going. See you.
And that reminds me of a story in the Denver airport. Every day we used to go for a rush in the C terminal. And there was a security guard who, at that time, we could take our books through the security. And every day when we go through, she tried to slow us down by taking the box off the conveyor belt, putting it in the check area, the hand check area, and she would go through. There were about 20 books in a box. She'd take every one of them out, and she'd go through each one of them really slowly, like this, like she was checking for a bomb or something like that. And she knew full well that we were in a hurry, but she tried to slow us down. And she did that for 3 months straight. And then one day I came back on a Sunday, and I was at the back of the temple, and one of the devotees came up and nudged me and said, "Hey, who's that lady standing up there at the front?" And I said, "No, it couldn't be." I was like, "Yes, it was." And she became a devotee. And so by the constant everyday contact with the Bhagavatam, that's what it was, the first canto of the Bhagavatam, going through like this, she became a devotee. Just an anecdotal. Yes, Prabhu?
That reminds me of, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Somebody else will remember this story, I remember his name. But he was also distributing books in the airport, and one of the security guards there, I believe, would constantly throw pennies at him.
Oh, yeah, it's in my book. That's Sarvapalma.
Yeah, Sarvapalma Prabhu. Yeah, and
this big, huge guy. He was an African-American, gigantic. Could have been like a big-time wrestler. He used to push the wheelchairs back and forth. And he hated Sarvapalma and the devotees. So the way he harassed him, even though he was in a uniform, he had to be a little tactful how he did it. Every day when he'd walk by Sarvapalma, he'd flick pennies at him, as if Sarvapalma was just like a beggar, so here's your pennies. But he'd flick them hard, so sometimes if you were close and it would hit him, he would be pelted. And when Sarva was talking to somebody, he'd come by and he'd flick him, and it would hit him either in the foot or in the hand. And Sarva every time would reach down and he'd pick it up and go, "Thank you." Like, he really appreciated it. And that went on for months. And then one day he came over and he gave Sarva a big bear hug. And he said, "You're all right." And then from that day on, he became Sarva's protector. If anybody came in there and tried tried to harass him, he would show up and he was like, you want to bother him? You want a piece of me? The penny principle of how, people, they start with some small thing. And that ends the reading from this morning's, from the Srimad Bhagavatam this morning. We're going to take it up again. We're going to take it up at 3:30 this afternoon. Thank you very much. Go Premanande. Nitya Gaura Hari Bo. Bo. Hari Bo. Nitya Gaura Hari Bo. 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 Hari Bo. Nitya Gaura Hari Bo. Vanchakoptaruscha Kripasanabevacha Patitanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Nantakoti Vaishnavedi Ki Jai Ho.